The blue lights on the emergency board flashed red for the first time in 200 years. Ambassador Zethka stood frozen as the warning sounds filled the council chamber. His scaled hands shook as he read the report from the outer colonies. The message was simple and terrible. The Vrak Empire had come. For 3 centuries, the Galactic Confederation had lived in peace. 47 star systems worked together, trading goods and sharing knowledge. They had no armies, no weapons of war, no soldiers. They had forgotten how to fight because they never needed to fight. But the Vrak were different. They came from the dark edge of the galaxy like hungry wolves. Their ships were black metal and sharp angles. They did not want to talk or trade. They wanted everything. The first colony to die was New Haven, home to 12 million peaceful beings. It fell in 3 hours. The Vrak ships came down from space like falling stars. Their weapons turned cities to glass and ash. Those who survived the first attack were taken as slaves. Zethka had to tell the council what happened next. His voice cracked as he spoke. Golden Shore is gone, Crystal Falls is gone, they are all gone. The council chamber fell silent. Representatives from dozens of worlds sat in their floating chairs, staring at the holographic display. Red dots marked the dead colonies. More red dots showed where Vrak fleets were moving toward the inner worlds. Fleet Admiral Jörn Vel spoke first. Her voice was calm, but everyone could hear the fear underneath. Our ships cannot stop them. We have mining, vessels and cargo haulers. They have war machines. How long do we have? Asked Counselor Thren from the water world of Aqua Prime. Jörn Vel checked her tactical display. 6 months, maybe less. They are moving fast and we cannot slow them down. The chamber erupted in panic. Some representatives called for evacuation. Others suggested surrender. A few spoke of fighting back, but they all knew it was hopeless. The Confederation had no weapons, no warriors, no way to protect themselves. Zethka stood up slowly. In his hand was a datapad with information that might save them all, or it might damn them. There is one option we have not discussed, he said. The room grew quiet again. There is a species that might help us. He activated the holographic projector. A small blue and green world appeared above the council table. It looked peaceful and beautiful with white clouds and vast oceans. This is Earth, Zethka said. It is far from here, in a quiet part of the galaxy. We have only basic information about it. Counselor Thren leaned forward. What makes you think they can help us? Zethka took a deep breath. Because they are warriors. The word hung in the air like a curse. In the peaceful Confederation, calling someone a warrior was the worst insult possible. It meant they were savage, violent, unable to solve problems without bloodshed. The survey probe that visited their system 2 centuries ago sent back disturbing reports. Zethka continued. These humans have never stopped fighting. Their entire history is one long war. The hologram changed to show images from the probe's memory. Cities filled with monuments to battles, museums displaying weapons of war, art that celebrated violence and death. They fight each other constantly, Zethka explained. Nation against nation, tribe against tribe, brother against brother. They have weapons that can destroy entire worlds. They have soldiers who live only to kill. Counselor Thren's face twisted in disgust. You want us to ask savages for help? I want us to survive, Zethka replied. The Vrak are coming whether we like it or not. We can die with our principles intact, or we can live by asking monsters to fight monsters for us. Admiral Jörn Vel studied the tactical display again. The red dots were moving closer. Soon they would reach worlds with billions of people. Men, women, and children who had never known war would face an enemy that knew nothing but war. What do we know about their military capability? She asked. Zethka switched to another display. They have thousands of nuclear weapons, ships that can travel between their planets, soldiers trained from birth to kill. The probe detected radio signals from their military networks. They coordinate massive armies across their entire world. And you think they will help us? Counselor Thren demanded. Why would warriors care about peace-loving people they have never met? Because warriors understand enemies, Zethka said quietly. They will see what the Vrak are doing and know it is wrong. The debate continued for hours. Some council members wanted to evacuate everyone to distant galaxies. Others suggested hiding in deep space until the wrack moved on. But as reports came in of more colonies falling, the options became clear. They could run and hope the wrack would not follow. They could surrender and become slaves. Or they could ask the humans for help. The vote was close. 24 worlds voted to contact Earth. 23 voted against it. It was the smallest margin in Confederation history, but it was enough. Zeth-Ka prepared the message himself. He chose his words carefully, knowing that first contact with a warrior species could go very wrong. The message had to be honest about what they faced. It had to offer something valuable in return for help. Most importantly, it had to make the humans care about strangers on the other side of the galaxy. The transmission array powered up with a deep hum. The message would take 6 weeks to reach Earth, traveling faster than light through the quantum communication network. If the humans agreed to help, their ships would need another 6 weeks to reach Confederation space. But the wrack would be at the core worlds in 10 weeks. Zeth-Ka sent the message and waited. All across the Confederation, billions of beings went about their daily lives, not knowing that their survival now depended on a species they had never met, a species that had built their entire civilization around the art of war. In the message, Zeth-Ka had included everything they knew about the wrack. He had offered advanced technology, rare materials, and permanent alliance in exchange for military assistance. He had shown images of burning colonies and enslaved populations. But most importantly, he had asked one simple question that he hoped would reach the human heart. Will you help us? The answer would determine whether the Confederation survived or joined the long list of civilizations that had fallen to the Vrak Empire. Deep in space, radio waves carried the desperate plea toward a small blue world where warriors waited among the stars. Dr. Amanda Hughes was drinking her morning coffee when the universe changed forever. The radio telescope in New Mexico had been listening to space for 50 years, hoping to hear something interesting. On that Tuesday morning, it heard the most important message in human history. The signal was strong and clear. It came from far beyond the solar system, farther than any human had ever traveled. But what made Amanda drop her coffee cup was not where it came from. It was what it said. The message translated itself into perfect English. Advanced alien technology had studied human communications and learned their language. The words appeared on her computer screen like a prayer from the stars. People of Earth, we are the Galactic Confederation. We are 47 worlds united, in peace. We have lived without war for 300 years. Now we face extinction. The Vrak Empire comes to destroy us. We have no weapons, no warriors, no way to defend ourselves. We know you are fighters. We know you understand war. Will you help us? Amanda read the message 3 times before her hand stopped shaking enough to pick up the phone. Within an hour, the message was on the desk of every world leader on Earth. By evening, emergency meetings were happening in every capital city. President Catherine Walsh stood before the United Nations Security Council 12 hours after the message arrived. The debate was intense but short. Everyone had seen the images the aliens sent. Burning cities, enslaved populations, entire worlds turned to ash and stone. We have been offered advanced technology in exchange for military assistance, President Walsh announced. Faster than light travel, unlimited energy, medical advances beyond our imagination. But that is not why we will help them. She paused and looked around the room at representatives from every nation on Earth. We will help them because it is right. We will help them because they asked. We will help them because we are human, and humans protect those who cannot protect themselves. The vote was unanimous. For the first time in history, every nation on Earth agreed on something. They would answer the call for help. General Patrick Stone had been a soldier for 30 years. He had fought in 3 wars and commanded armies on 4 continents. But nothing had prepared him for this moment. He stood in the Pentagon's deepest bunker, looking at holographic displays showing Earth's entire military capability. How fast can we build a space fleet? President Walsh asked him. Stone studied the numbers. 6 weeks if we use everything we have. Every military base, every shipyard, every factory. We cannibalize our space stations and orbital platforms. We strip weapons from every ship, plane, and tank we can spare. Do it, Walsh ordered. The next 42 days transformed Earth into a weapon factory. In Houston, NASA engineers worked around the clock mounting nuclear missiles on space station modules. In Norfolk, naval architects designed warships that could fight in the vacuum of space. In Colorado Springs, Air Force pilots trained for combat in zero gravity. Dr. Lisa Chen led the team adapting human weapons for space warfare. She worked 18-hour days, surviving on coffee and determination. The challenge was enormous. Human technology was primitive compared to what the aliens offered, but it had one advantage. It was designed to kill. While alien civilizations had focused on peace and progress, humans had spent thousands of years perfecting destruction. Every weapon system on Earth had been tested in combat. Every tactic had been proven in blood. Captain Rick Hayes commanded the first completed warship, the ESS Vengeance. Built around a modified space station, it carried enough firepower to level a city. His crew was hand-picked from special forces units around the world. Marines from America, commandos from Britain, Spetsnaz from Russia, all united by their skill at warfare. The ship looked ugly compared to the sleek alien vessels they had seen in the transmitted images. It was a collection of metal boxes and weapon pods held together by determination and welding. But Hayes loved it anyway. She may not be pretty, he told his crew, but she knows how to fight. The journey to alien space took 6 weeks using the faster-than-light drive the Confederation had provided. During the trip, Hayes drilled his crew constantly. They studied every piece of information about their enemy, learning VRAC tactics and weaknesses. What they discovered was both encouraging and terrifying. The VRAC were incredibly advanced but predictable. They relied on superior technology and overwhelming numbers. Their commanders followed strict battle plans, unable to adapt when things went wrong. They had never fought humans. Meanwhile, more ships launched from Earth. The ESS Retribution carried experimental weapons that broke 3 international treaties. The ESS Fury was loaded with nuclear mines that could crack asteroids in half. Each vessel represented humanity's accumulated knowledge of how to destroy things efficiently. Admiral Susan Grant coordinated the growing fleet from her flagship, the ESS Determination. A career military officer with silver hair and steel eyes, she understood that humanity's greatest weapon was not their technology. It was their attitude. Other species saw war as a necessary evil. Humans had embraced it as an art form. As the human fleet approached the combat zone, they received updated intelligence from Confederation sources. The situation was worse than anyone had imagined. The VRAC had broken through the main defensive line. 3 core worlds had fallen in the past week. Refugee ships fled in all directions, carrying survivors from civilizations that had stood for millennia. But Admiral Grant smiled as she reviewed the tactical reports. The VRAC had made a critical mistake. They had concentrated their entire fleet for a final assault on the Confederation capital. They believed victory was certain, that nothing could stop their advance. They were about to learn why Earth had never known lasting peace. They were about to discover why humans had conquered their own world before reaching for the stars. They were about to face a species that had turned warfare into a science and violence into an art. The ESS Determination dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. Sensors immediately detected the massive VRAC fleet, 3,000 ships, advancing in perfect formation toward the capital world. It was the largest military force in galactic history. Admiral Grant activated the fleet communication system. Her voice reached every human ship, every soldier, every warrior who had crossed the galaxy to answer a cry for help. All ships. This is Admiral Grant. The enemy is before us. They outnumber us 15 to 1. They have better technology, stronger shields, more powerful weapons. By every measure of military science, we should lose this battle. She paused, watching the VRAC fleet on her tactical display. But they have made one fatal error. They have never fought humans. They do not know that we do not fight fair. They do not know that we turn disadvantages into weapons. They do not know that we would rather die fighting than live in chains. The fleet moved into attack formation, 200 human ships against 3,000 alien vessels. Today we show the galaxy what happens when you threaten the innocent. Today we prove that Earth keeps its promises. All ships weapons free, let us bring fire to the darkness. The Battle of Kepler's Crown began with silence. The Vrak fleet moved through space like a dark tide, 3,000 ships advancing in perfect formation. Their silicon-based commanders calculated victory with cold precision. The numbers were simple. They outnumbered the human fleet 15-1. Commander Vrakneth studied the approaching human vessels from his flagship. The alien ships looked primitive to his crystalline eyes, crude metal constructions held together with basic technology. His tactical computers dismissed them as barely worth consideration. "These humans dare to challenge the Empire?" he asked his officers. "Their ships are little more than scrap metal." But Admiral Grant had not come to fight a traditional battle. As the Vrak fleet closed in, she gave an order that would change galactic warfare forever. All ships, scatter formation. Execute Plan Chaos. The human fleet broke apart like a flock of birds, each ship racing in a different direction. Captain Hayes led 12 fast attack vessels toward the Vrak supply line. Commander Sarah Davis took her squadron into the asteroid field on the system's edge. Lieutenant Paul Martinez dove his ship under the main battle formation, heading for the command vessels. Vrakneth watched in confusion as his easy targets disappeared. His sensors tracked human ships moving in all directions, but none of them approached for direct combat. This was not how space battles were supposed to work. "Sir, they are attacking our supply ships," reported his tactical officer. On the edge of the formation, Hayes and his squadron struck like wolves. The ESS Vengeance opened fire with everything it had. Nuclear missiles streaked across space, slamming into Vrak cargo vessels. The explosions lit up the darkness like new stars. "Target their communication arrays," Hayes ordered. "Cut them off from each other." His gunners fired with deadly accuracy. Railgun rounds moving at incredible speed punched through Vrak armor, like paper. One by one, the alien communication relays went dark. The perfect formation began to fray as individual ships lost contact with their commanders. Vrakneth tried to reorganize his fleet, but the humans struck again from a different angle. Commander Davis emerged from the asteroid field with her squadron, targeting the Vrak fuel depots. Her ships carried weapons that violated every treaty on civilized warfare. "Fire cluster bombs," she ordered. The weapons spread across space like deadly flowers, each one splitting into dozens of smaller explosives. The Vrak had never seen anything like it. Their point defense systems could not track so many targets. The bombs reached their fuel ships and detonated in massive fireballs. But the real shock came when the humans began sacrificing themselves. Lieutenant Jake Murphy's fighter was damaged and losing air. Instead of retreating, he aimed his ship at a Vrak command vessel and accelerated to maximum speed. "For Earth," he shouted over the radio as his ship slammed into the alien bridge. The nuclear reactor overloaded, vaporizing both vessels in a brilliant explosion. Across the battlefield, other human pilots made the same choice. When their ships were damaged beyond repair, they turned them into weapons. Each suicide attack destroyed vessels worth millions of credits and decades of construction. Vrakneth had never seen such madness. His people valued efficiency and preservation. The idea of deliberately destroying oneself for tactical advantage was incomprehensible, but it was working. His fleet was taking losses it could not afford. "All ships focus fire on the human command vessel," he ordered. "Destroy their leadership." The Vrak fleet began to converge on Admiral Grant's position. Thousands of energy beams reached across space toward the ESS Determination. But Grant had expected this. She activated the final phase of her plan. "Detonate the minefield," she ordered. For weeks, human ships had been secretly placing nuclear mines throughout the system. The explosives were hidden in asteroids, attached to derelict satellites, scattered across the most likely battle zones. Now they all detonated at once. The explosions created a chain reaction that lit up the entire system. Vrak ships caught in. The blast zones were instantly vaporized. Others were knocked off course, their formations shattered. The careful order of the fleet dissolved into chaos. In the confusion, the remaining human ships struck with everything they had. Captain Hayes brought his squadron out of the asteroid field, firing missiles at point-blank range. Commander Davis targeted the Vrak command ships with her heaviest weapons. Across the battlefield, human vessels appeared and disappeared like ghosts, striking hard and vanishing before the enemy could respond. The Vrak had superior technology, but they were fighting an enemy that did not follow the rules. Humans used tactics that no civilized species would consider. They fought dirty, improvised constantly, and treated every disadvantage as an opportunity. Colonel Ryan Brooks led a boarding party onto a damaged Vrak dreadnought. His Marines fought through alien corridors with a brutality that shocked the silicon-based defenders. Where Vrak tactics relied on calculated precision, human combat was pure aggression. "Secure the bridge," Brooks ordered, as his men advanced through the ship. "Show them what happens when you threaten peaceful people." The battle raged for 6 hours. When it ended, space around Kepler's crown was littered with debris from 300 Vrak vessels. The mighty fleet that had conquered dozens of worlds was broken and scattered. Surviving ships fled in all directions, carrying news that would terrify the Empire. Admiral Grant stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the tactical display. The impossible had happened. A smaller, less advanced fleet had achieved total victory against a superior enemy, but the cost had been high. 40 human ships were gone, along with their brave crews. Ambassador Zeth Ka arrived on the ESS Determination to witness the aftermath. His scaled hands trembled as he looked at the battle damage. Burn marks covered the ship's hull. Emergency repair teams worked to patch holes in the armor. But the ship was still fighting, still ready for the next battle. "How?" he asked Admiral Grant. "How did you defeat them?" Grant turned from the tactical display. Her uniform was stained with smoke and her face was tired, but her eyes still burned with determination. "We did not fight their battle," she explained. "We fought our battle. The Vrak expected us to meet them head-on, ship against ship, honor against honor. But humans do not fight for honor. We fight to win." She gestured to the debris field outside. They had better ships, better weapons, better technology, but they had one fatal weakness. They were predictable. They followed rules. They fought like machines. Zeth Ka nodded slowly. "And humans? Humans fight like humans," Grant replied. "We adapt. We improvise. We use whatever works. We do not care about honor or tradition or proper tactics. We care about protecting those who cannot protect themselves." The ambassador looked out at the scattered remains of the Vrak fleet. The threat to his people was not over, but for the first time in months he felt hope. "What happens now?" he asked. Admiral Grant smiled. It was not a gentle smile. "Now we take the fight to them. The Vrak want to conquest the galaxy. Let them learn what happens when they threaten Earth's friends." 6 months after the Battle of Kepler's Crown, the galaxy had learned to fear a new name. Wherever the Vrak Empire had enslaved peaceful worlds, wherever they had built their war machines, wherever they thought they were safe, humans appeared like avenging angels. General Stone stood in his command center on the liberated world of New Haven. The same planet that had fallen in 3 hours to the Vrak now served as humanity's main base of operations. Where alien slave factories once stood, human engineers built weapon workshops and training centers. The transformation was remarkable. Creatures who had never held weapons in their lives now learned to fight. The peaceful species of the Confederation discovered that sometimes survival required embracing their darker nature. Captain Hayes, now promoted to Commodore, led the newest offensive deep into Vrak territory. His mission was simple but revolutionary. Instead of just defending Confederation worlds, humanity had chosen to carry the war to the enemy. They would liberate every slave world, destroy every Vrak stronghold, and rescue every captured population. The ESS Vengeance dropped out of hyperspace above the industrial world of Vrak 7. Below them, massive factories churned out war machines, while millions of enslaved beings worked in horrible conditions. The planet's surface was covered in smoke and ash, stripped bare by centuries of resource extraction. "Sir, we're detecting life signs in the slave compounds," reported Lieutenant Nancy White. approximately 2 million organic beings in various detention facilities. Hayes studied the tactical display. The planet was heavily defended with orbital platforms and fighter squadrons. A direct assault would be suicide. But humans had learned that the direct approach was rarely the best approach. "Signal Colonel Brooks," Hayes ordered. "Tell him it's time for his people to go to work." On the planet's surface, small teams of human special forces had already infiltrated the slave compounds. Colonel Ryan Brooks moved through the dark tunnels. Beneath the main factory, his team armed with weapons designed for close combat. They had been on the planet for 3 days, studying guard patterns and weakening defenses. The slaves they found were creatures from dozens of different worlds. Some had been prisoners for generations, born into captivity and knowing nothing of freedom. Others were recent captures, still bearing the scars of their world's destruction. "Listen to me," Brooks whispered to a group of reptilian beings huddled in a detention cell. "We are humans from Earth. We have come to free you, but we need your help." The eldest slave, a creature with scales that had once been bright green but were now dull with years of suffering, looked at him with disbelief. "No, one fights the Vrak and wins," he said. "They are too strong, too many." Brooks showed him a small device that projected images of the Battle of Kepler's Crown. The slave watched in amazement as human ships destroyed the mighty Vrak fleet. "The galaxy is changing," Brooks said. "The age of Vrak dominance is ending, but we cannot free your world from space. We need you to help us from the ground." Within hours, the underground resistance was born. Slaves who had never dreamed of fighting back began sabotaging factory equipment. Humans taught them to build improvised explosives from cleaning supplies and electronic components. The concept of guerrilla warfare spread through the compound like wildfire. Dr. Chen's engineering teams worked miracles combining human technology with alien materials. The new generation of Earth warships carried firepower that could crack moons while maintaining the speed and flexibility that made human tactics so effective. But their greatest achievement was teaching other species to think like warriors. In the Confederation capital, Ambassador Zeth Ka watched training videos of his own people learning human combat techniques. Alterian diplomats who had spent their lives negotiating treaties now practiced with assault rifles. It was a transformation that would have horrified him 6 months ago. Now it filled him with hope. The assault on Vrak 7 began at dawn, but instead of the expected orbital bombardment, the attack came from within. Every factory on the planet experienced simultaneous explosions as the slave uprising began. Power grids failed, communication networks went dark, and Vrak commanders found themselves fighting enemies they could not see. High Commander Vrak Zul received the reports in his crystalline command chamber on the Vrak homeworld. Planet after planet was falling to human-led rebellions. Their empire, built over centuries of conquest, was crumbling in months. "How is this possible?" he demanded of his officers. "These humans are primitives. Their technology is inferior." His chief strategist, a silicon being with mathematical precision built into its core programming, struggled to explain. "They do not fight according to established patterns," it replied. "They adapt constantly. They turn our strengths into weaknesses. They inspire our slaves to rebellion. They fight not just with weapons, but with ideas." Vrak Zul studied the holographic display showing the Empire's shrinking borders. Red zones marked human-controlled space. Blue zones showed active rebellions, and green zones indicated the few remaining loyal systems. "Prepare the home fleet," he ordered. "We will destroy Earth itself. Cut off the head, and the body will die." But Admiral Grant had anticipated this response. Intelligence networks established throughout former Vrak space brought word of the planned attack. When the Vrak home fleet launched, humans were waiting. The final battle of the war took place in the void between galaxies. The Vrak assembled their greatest fleet, pulling ships from every remaining stronghold. 5,000 vessels, the accumulated might of their entire empire, moved through hyperspace toward Earth. They emerged to find 2,000 human ships waiting in perfect ambush formation. "This is Admiral Grant to all Vrak vessels." Her voice echoed across communication channels in perfectly translated Vrak language. You came to destroy our world. Instead, you will learn why Earth protects its friends. The battle was not the close-fought struggle of Kepler's crown. This time, humans had the advantage of preparation, position, and alliance. Ships from a dozen liberated species fought alongside Earth vessels. Former slaves operated weapon systems built from salvaged Vrak technology. The most devastating moment came when the Vrak flagship, carrying their supreme commander, found itself surrounded by a squadron of ships crewed entirely by liberated slaves. Beings who had spent their lives in chains now held the power of life and death over their former masters. Surrender, Commodore Hayes broadcast to the Vrak fleet. Your empire is finished. Your conquests are ended. Surrender and live. But High, Commander Vrak Zul chose death over defeat. His flagship detonated in a final act of defiance, taking several human ships with it. The remaining Vrak vessels, leaderless and broken, raised white flags across the battlefield. Admiral Grant stood in the council chambers of the reformed Galactic Confederation, but this time the room was different. Human military advisors stood beside alien diplomats. Former slaves sat in chairs once occupied by their masters. The age of universal peace had ended, replaced by something stronger, an age of protected peace. The Terran Protectorate is established today, Grant announced. Earth will not simply return home after bringing fire to the galaxy. We will remain. We will guard the peaceful species of this galaxy. We will ensure that no empire ever again threatens those who choose diplomacy over war. Ambassador Zeth Ka looked around the transformed chamber. Military uniforms mixed with diplomatic robes, weapons stood beside symbols of peace. It was not the galaxy he had grown up in, but it was better. You called for help, Grant continued, and Earth brought fire. That fire will never be extinguished. Wherever freedom is threatened, wherever the innocent face destruction, wherever peaceful beings call for aid, humans will answer. Outside the chamber windows, Earth ships patrolled the space lanes while former slave worlds rebuilt their civilizations. The galaxy burned, but it burned with the fire of hope rather than conquest. They had called for help, and Earth had brought fire. Now that fire would guard the galaxy forever,